G'day my friends, Marty Ware here from Marty's Garden, bringing you the live interview shows. Now this is pretty exciting, as I said before, it was going to happen and we're finally here, and we've got an exciting guest for you today from Australia, and she loves permaculture, regenerative gardening, worm farming, a few other things that we're going to sort of bring forward, and I'm sure you're going to benefit and get a lot out of this recording / interview today. Who knows, these may even turn into podcasts in the future. But for now, come and watch them here on the Marty's Garden channel as I bring in these YouTubers that are going to share their life, love and passions for growing food and a few other things as well. Sometimes we get a little bit sort of on the edge of personal, impersonal. But anyway, look, enough about me and the show. Let's introduce Robin. Hello, Robin. How are you going there?
Hello, I'm well. I'm very excited to chat with you. Yeah, should be a good chat about all things gardening and permaculture.
For sure, really nice to see you here, and yeah, thanks so much for coming. I'm just going to try and get you onto the side. I'm right, so we got a right and left here. There we go. That's all working. So that's really good. There we go. We've both got a split screen. It's a bit easier for us both to see and for everyone to see us talking. So wonderful again. Thank you so much for coming. And what I'm going to do is get you to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and yeah, anything special that you would like to share as well. Please go for it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, my name is Robin. I have a YouTube channel called The Nature Patch, where I've kind of been filming videos for about a year and a half or so, kind of more regularly filming videos all to do with gardening, permaculture, and I kind of throw in a few different travel vlogs in there to kind of share a bit of nature as well, hence the name, The Nature Patch. Where I really wanted to bring in nature to the garden and share with you a little bit on how we can incorporate different principles from permaculture and regenerative gardening, and also the work I do. So I am a PhD student at the moment, doing a research project on rehabilitating mine sites and how we can return nature and also the benefits from nature back to a mine site from Indigenous perspectives as well. So lots of research up in Cape York, Northern Queensland, where I've got to do some really cool field work, working with lots of bush foods and lots of plants that you can use things from and either be able to eat them or use them to make baskets. Lots of different benefits, yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. So yeah, this, like I said, there's a lot going to be in this video today, and I'm stoked that Robin, when I reached out to her, she was really happy to come on the show and meet my audience, and a few of you may know her already. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk a lot about about permaculture and regenerative gardening, and then we're going to move into the worm farming sort of at the end. Hang on to that, guys. But firstly, I just want to ask, why YouTube? Why YouTube, Robin?
Yeah, so I think mainly because I wanted to both be able to share my knowledge that I have of gardening and also to meet new people. So I live around the Brisbane area at the moment and found that there wasn't a lot of content online, more specifically videos that I could watch that were from Queensland, and being able to showcase some of the natives that we have up here and also how to garden, because we have such a different climate to southern areas of Australia. It's really, really hot in summer and it doesn't get too cold in winter as well. So we can garden all year round, which sounds great, but there are so many challenges to gardening in a subtropical humid climate. I wanted to share some of those challenges just meet new people as well. So I came across your channel and some other great Aussie YouTubers really hoping to just build a bit of a community too.
Yeah, wonderful. So, we'll get into that a little bit because you're in the subtropics. I'm in the subtropics, but I'm way down the south. I'm right on the edge of temperate subtropical, and you're right up in the north, almost bordering tropical. So, even though they call it subtropical, they have all these zones and things like that. similar, but then again, sort of not. It's a tricky one, really. But yeah, we'll get into that probably further on down the line if I feel that there's something we can discuss further. But look, I've got a question for you, and the first one is because you really like growing Australian native foods. Now, in sort of permaculture systems and regenerative gardening, we look a lot, depending on what country we're in and what zone we're in, we look a lot at natives, growing natives that are indigenous to our areas, because it brings the bird species in, like it creates really good habitat. It produces good food for us that will grow locally, and so there's less problems with pests and diseases and things like that because they're indigenous to that area. So there's so many benefits for doing it. So my question here is, I've got my list here, so that's why I'm looking down to the side here. I'll just flash it there for a second. So my question is, you really love growing Australian native bush foods. Can you tell us the benefits of growing native foods in your garden?
Yeah, so I suppose it's probably different for everyone. For myself, in a subtropical climate, it is mainly the fact that we get a lot of bugs here and pests around and different potential diseases just because it's so humid majority of the time here. And so growing natives, I find I really don't have to do much with them. I'm kind of a lazy gardener a lot. Just really like to let things go. And I find that I can do that with bush foods. So I don't have to be spraying them or using kind of inorganic methods to be able to grow food. Also, I suppose water is a big problem here where we get a really dry winter. So a lot of our winter, we don't have any rainfall, and natives really just don't need a lot because they're adapted to the climate already. So that's, yeah, probably the two main reasons I like to grow them.
Yeah, so, and that relates to really right across the globe, right? They're sort of indigenous to the area, they've adapted to the area, they're used to sort of the rainfalls, floods, fires, whatever we get, those type of things, which Australia, we get all of them. And let's not even throw in cyclones in there as well. But yeah, so I highly recommend that people, if they're looking into sort of growing more naturally, they're looking into sort of permaculture, they're looking into regenerative gardening and farming, they work really well in windbreaks. And you told me the other day when we were talking, you had two favourites, one that grows along the ground and another that's a tree and has a nice, beautiful pink berry on it. So what's the one that grows along the ground? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so I really love to grow Warrigal greens, which is kind of the showcase of Australia's native spinach. It's also native to New Zealand as well. But Warrigal greens is such a great starting point for bush foods that I really just recommend to all my friends and family if they're starting to get into it or they're a little bit worried about going out to the bush and picking a plant or whatever. They're really readily available, the seeds for Warrigal greens, and they're quite cheap online to get. They like to grow in a little bit more of sandy soils. So I like to add a little bit of sand to the pots when I'm starting them out because I like a really well drained potting mix, and they naturally grow on kind of more coastline areas. And they are a little bit of kind of a succulent texture, which I don't quite mind, but I do like to cook them, and I like to cook them and prepare them just to get all of the oxalates out of spinach. So a lot of the darker green spinaches are quite high in oxalates. So it's great to blanch them before, but you can use them in curries and spinach and lots of different recipes.
Yeah, it's a great plant. I really like it, and there's so much of it growing around here where I live, on the river and on the beach. I don't even have to grow it in my garden. I can just go harvest a bit, and it wouldn't even touch the sides really for how much there is, because no one knows about this plant. They do sell it like in high-end restaurants. You see it in different sort of menus and things like that. My favourite is like a spinach cheese roll sort of thing, and replacing the spinach with it. You do have to, when you get it from the beach, you have to wash it though really good. I've done it a couple of times, haven't washed it good enough, and I'm like chewing on sand later going, God, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know how the sand grains get stuck on there, but yeah, so if you collected it from the beach, only take enough that you need a little bit, for a meal, and yeah, give it a really good rinse. But great plant, good taste, and it does have that bit of a spinachy sort of flavour, doesn't it? But maybe not as strong as, like, say, an English spinach or something like that. What do you say?
Yeah, I'd agree. That's why it's just great to add into everything, just to bulk up a meal, or just even add to a green smoothie as well. Yeah, it grows so well in this area. So yeah, I definitely recommend it if you're starting out.
So the tree with the little pink fruit, berries, things we might like to call it, and grows in all different types. There's all different types of them. What is the name of that tree that you like to grow?
Yeah, so I love growing Syzygium species or lily pillies. Um, I found through my work and just going out to the bush that there are so many different types of lily pillies that grow, even from the small little tiny pink berries to berries that are literally the sizes of apples, up in northern Cape York area. And yeah, it's such a great plant to grow. It looks really nice, so you can use it as a hedge or as a feature plant in your garden, and you'll also provide that habitat and then the berries as well. And yeah, the new shoots have really, or some of them have really beautiful pink leaves as well that grow when it's growing really rapidly. So it's just a beautiful plant that is, yeah, one of my favorites.
I really like it because it can be cut back, can be hedged. There's so many different varieties. You can look at the ones that are indigenous to your area. I grow one called Syzygian Resilience, which is sort of like the main one that you get in the nurseries. It's a smaller tree. Yeah, and it can handle a good heavy prune. Brings lots of bees in. Has a wonderful white flower, and it's sort of like a little sort of, I don't know if it's a clovey flavour, but it's hard to sort of describe the flavour, but it's got an apple texture when I bite it.
Yeah.
Little bit of a seed. Some of the seeds are big sometimes they're smaller. But yeah, I quite like them, and I look forward to when they fruit. And so it's a tree that we both would recommend if you're in Australia, and I believe they have them overseas. But look for your type of tree that grows indigenous to your area. Would be more recommended. But if you don't mind going a sort of a little bit off the angle, like I grow like avocados, right? And they're from South America. So, there you go.
Yeah.
I've got another question for you, Rob, and I look down here on my list here. Do you use permaculture and regenerative methods in your garden? And if you do, why?
Yes, I definitely do. I think it's one of the first words that comes up on my page when you go onto my YouTube channel about, yeah, permaculture. So I definitely do. And I believe that we're really inherently connected to nature as yeah, as humans, and it not only has so many benefits for our physical health being out in nature, but also our mental health and well-being as well. And I have found bringing in different permaculture principles and regenerative farming really fantastic for growing food. And yeah, one of my favorite things to incorporate from there's kind of the three main permaculture principles of your earth care, people care, and fair share is yeah, taking a little bit from those and not, I'm not perfect. I don't do everything perfect, but each decision I do make, I try and think about both the planet and how I can give back and not take as much. Also, how it's going to impact the people around me, and then how I might be able to share what I'm growing, or in this case, kind of share it on YouTube, have that kind of fair share kind of principle. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. So I'm a big fan of, feed the soil, not the plants sort of thing. So I generally like to ask people that come on my show now, this is a part of going to be like a permanent question. What's your favourite way to feed the soil? You
It's a
can
good
just give us
question.
one
Yeah.
method, one quick method.
So I think probably just homemade compost would be my favorite one, just because I love creating, gold from trash, basically. And yeah, do like to think of the soil as its own environment, that it needs food, water, and yeah, air as well. And yeah, for me, we lack a lot of organic matter in the soil. So adding that in via compost is probably my favorite way to, yeah, do that.
Yeah. Okay. So do you mostly dig it in when you're planting, or do you sort of put it on top and create layers? What's your method?
So I usually, when I'm digging a plant, digging the hole for it, I'll put a little bit in the hole. And I usually dig a bit more wider holes in our area just because our soil is, it's pretty much granite around here. It just doesn't drain very well, and you need to have that movement for the roots. But if I am creating, say, like a raised garden bed, I'll just keep layering it and kind of not disturb the soil as much as I can. Obviously, you can't really help having to dig a hole for a plant. But if I was creating a garden bed, I think kind of those natural principles and layering different compost and coffee grounds and everything on top. Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. So let's say, for example, you're planting a new plant. So you're going to dig a hole that's bigger than the root system of the pot that you've got.
Yeah.
You're going to mix some compost through with the indigenous soil, the local soils, to build up the organic matter.
Yep.
And then after that, you've covered the plant over, you filled it in. What's the next step? Do you have like a favourite mulch that you put on top?
Yeah, I usually garden really cheaply in my garden. I don't like to spend a lot of money, and how I've planted my recent garden is just by doing those first few steps and then putting cardboard over, kind of just like a, I don't know, 30 centimeter radius kind of around the plant. And we just have eucalyptus mulch around, and I'm a big believer in just using what you have, and just making sure that it's safe before you use it. But I love, yeah, using local mulch, but sugarcane mulch is probably my favorite to use. We've got a lot of sugarcane in Australia.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's very readily available, yeah.
Yeah, so you try and use what's locally like there for you to keep down the costs, and also, like, do you like when you put the cardboard down? Do you wet it down first, or do you just like soak it down later on?
Yeah, so I'll give the plant a water as soon as I plant it in the ground, make sure it's all saturated, put the cardboard on and make that saturated as well, then the mulch and give it another water. And that just ensures that all forms of contact between what you're putting on the ground comes in contact with water, just in case you do have quite, you know, your soils don't really retain a lot of water. It's important to make it all moist before you leave it alone, or else the water could just start running off as soon as it rains.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
So by
establishes it well.
by adding compost and doing what the method and mulching over the top, yeah, I call it a soil water bank. So we're creating this water bank where when it rains and when we water, it's holding more moisture, and then the plant's got more chance of success. And if it's not as stressed, less chance of pests and disease, right? So I think that's a good method, and
Yeah.
I really want to encourage more people to compost, even if you're just doing it in a small way. And that's, there's another way of worm farming, which we'll discuss a little bit further, which is really good for just really small spaces as well. You can just have one small farm. And Robin's been worm farming for quite a long time. So we're going to get into that in a second. My next question was, can you tell us why you choose to garden this way? But I think you've already answered that, so we're going to move straight into to the worm farming section, right? And it says, the question here is, finally, do you have a worm farm?
Yes, I do. I have two main worm farms at the moment, but I also consider my compost bins a worm farm as well in itself. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because they just get in there. Once you've got good populations, they seem to sneak in there, don't they? And all of a sudden you have this worm farm in your compost. If it's not getting overly hot, they seem to really quite like it in there. And sometimes they just explode in there, and you go, hang on, how come my compost is doing better than my worm farm? Like... because we don't touch it. We're not like looking at it all the time and going, oh, how are my worms going, sort of thing, We forget about them and let them do their natural thing. And sometimes, yeah, it really amazes me. I have a compost tumbler.
Yeah.
People say to me sometimes, don't they get too hot? And I'm like, yeah, but I don't overly add too much material at once. And so once it's already broken down, it's sort of like really sort of quite broken down, almost becomes like a bedding for them to hide in, and just throwing a bit in and give it a little bit of a tumble, and they're quite happy. So, but if you go throwing huge amounts in at a time and it's getting hot, they'll escape to the edges if it's not an enclosed one, and then they're okay. And then when it cools down, they sort of move back in. So yeah, that's a really good point. So what benefits do you find by owning a worm farm?
Probably there's a few. The main ones would be just the fact that I can use my food scraps and they don't go to landfill. So I've, and you can have worm farms on your balcony wherever you live, if you live in the city as well. Using up food scraps is one main thing. And also I love worm castings. They are just the best thing for your garden as well as your homemade compost. But if you want to get plants growing and give it a really good fertilize, I think worm castings are probably the best thing that you can add to your garden and give it a boost.
Yeah, nice. I've got a couple more questions about worm farming, but I know you've got a cup of tea there, and I've been making you talk too much. Would you like to have a drink of your tea?
I'll have.
Let's have a look at your cup. I want to see your cup. Oh, that's
Mine's
a groovy
from
looking.
England. It's
Is it? Has that got a good story about it? Like that cup?
Yeah. I mean, it was handmade around kind of the middle of England, and yeah, it was a really great holiday. So brings back good memories. Having an Earl Grey tea today, and I always have a cup of tea in all my videos, so I felt like I really did have to have one here.
Yeah, that's cool. And a cup all the way. Look, I love my cups, right? I don't have enough of them. I'd have a whole cupboard full if I could. So anyway, that cup, I really like that cup. It looks really cool. And it's got a good story to it. Give us a look at the bottom of it. What does it say?
It's just got the maker's mark on it. So it's from
See, mine's a cheapo Chinese cup.
Still cool, you know. You
I
need
just
one
like
of them
that.
if you're a dad.
I was sort of big noting myself there, but why not?
Go for it.
It's all for the fun. So great stuff. You had a little drink now. Feel free to have a sip on your tea. We're not far off finishing up, guys. We're just talking a little bit about worm farming, and then we'll talk a little bit about what you can find over on Robin's channel there at the Nature Patch. And let's keep on rolling here. So what type of worm farm would you recommend for beginners?
So I am a big fan of the canner worms, or any kind of raised worm farm, because it's kind of caters for all ages as well. If you've got kids, or if you have trouble bending down as well, it's just a great all-rounder, I suppose. And you really can't go wrong a lot of the times with it. Starting out, as long as you just keep in mind thinking that it is its own little environment, and you think about food, bedding, and air, then you really should be fine to start out.
Yeah, cool. They're a great little worm farm. They're the ones that I use in the courses here on my Worm Wranglers members area for the level 3 guys. They're the enclosed ones. They're pretty good to start off with. They're not for everyone, but they're more the sort of like the highly recommended ones until you start branching out and sort of moving into underground worm farms and things like that. But yeah, I really like them. I've got 3 different ones out in the backyard mixed up with all the other farms that I have here. But it's great that you've shared that with me. Now, what I want to do is ask is, so you feed them obviously a wide variety of foods because you give them all your veggie scraps, but what's the one favourite thing that they love at your place to eat?
Yeah, so probably, and I've been doing this starting out a new worm farm, things that break down really quickly. So mango peels at the moment and watermelon. If you want to get your worms feeding a lot, and you've bought them and you want to chuck them out, I find that they are really popular in the worm farm just because they break down super quickly, the worms love them.
They like those sugars too, right? So they like a bit of moisture there in the watermelon, a bit of sugar in there for them to get a bit of energy, and they love that. They're definitely for sure. So that's great for sharing. Thank you for that. And so probably what would be the second food that they would go for if they run out of watermelon and sort of like mango pips? Because not everyone has watermelon and mango, right? Would there be another one?
Probably tea. Or coffee. grounds. Yeah, the tea bags are a favorite, I find. Yeah, and coffee grounds. We drink a lot of coffee in this house, and it goes straight there. And the worms seem to love it. It's something that isn't also going to smell a lot. So if you're worried about smell, coffee grounds and tea is a great option to add into your worm farm. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, 'cause there's so many benefits for having worm farms, and also like we're talking about this permaculture regenerative thing, and it really they play a big role really in establishing a garden once you get going, because you can use the castings, you can use the worm tea, you can use the liquid coming out. They eventually will escape and move through garden beds and find happy spots to be, and all of a sudden you just find that the plants just start flourishing. I would never ever go back from using them again. I don't think I would ever have the success that I have now. I think you would personally agree with that. Yes, once you're worm farming, you're never going back.
Yeah, I agree. I've been doing it for about 10 years or so, having one, and I think everyone should have them. Just it's fun as well, and yeah, it's you've got thousands of little pets.
Yeah, and we're doing something really good for the environment, right? Like it's like you said before, we're not throwing it out into landfill, and we're turning this like food that's waste that would normally be considered as waste into a nutrient that we can use to feed our garden and feed our soils. And it doesn't smell. The worm castings don't smell. You can put it in a little bit of water your pot plants with it, where sometimes chicken pellets and things get a bit stinky and stuff like that. And seedlings, no problem, grow in it. It doesn't burn seedlings. It's a great all-rounder. And I think more people should really be doing it. And so hats off to you for being and starting for 10 years. And obviously you are not going to stop. I can see that.
No, yeah. No, there's also a lot of ways. I know our council area as well, you can actually get free worm farms. So there's different rebates around. So I definitely have a look in your area to see if there are rebates, because gradually as we move more and more to gardening and worrying about our waste, I think it's going to be the way to go. And I think everyone is going to start having to do this one day, because it's just such a great thing to do. Yeah.
So more people are going to have them basically over time as more people learn about them and want to start recycling more, especially with this whole new green movement that's going on. And, I'm really for that in many ways, because I want to see, a clean planet, you know what I mean? And worms just clean up mess like no tomorrow. And they actually, if you know this, a lot of people, there are some indigenous compost worms that live in forests and things like that, but generally most of the species live around people. That's where they congregate. They live around people. You find them on landscaping sites, you find them in the back of like cow sheds, all this type of thing. You very rarely see them out in sort of forest areas, unless for some reason they've sort of populated in certain places, where I think they have, maybe in Canada and different places like that. But yeah, after doing my research, I was blown out. I was like, oh, hang on. These hang around people, and ever since they know the records go right back, they've been around helping people dissolve waste. And such, like I was doing some research as well about like old homesteading stuff and chickens. Now chickens were really expensive, and it wasn't until we started doing big massive chicken farms that they become cheaper to eat. And so basically chickens were used for scraps. And so they just threw the scraps out the window, and the chickens come along and eat them and clean up the scraps. But not everyone can have chickens, so worm farms and worms, our little pets that live in the thousands in our little homes, do that as well, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. And I've heard that they also use like not the compost worms, but the bigger earthworms for actually rehabilitating mine sites and mine waste as well. They add in really large populations to just, eat down any organic matter that they lay down and balance the pH of different mine wastes. So they're amazing, different creatures, yeah.
Wow, that is really amazing. That's like forefront technology, and maybe when we find out more about that, I'd love to hear more about that in the near future. So we're just about to finish up, guys, and as you heard before, Robin's from a channel called The Nature Patch. She's in Australia, up on Brisbane, subtropical region, north of me, I'd say it'd be probably 6 to 8 hours, 7 hours drive, something like that if I was to drive all day. Fair way. Australia's a huge, huge place, And she loves to grow sort of, organic foods. She's into permaculture, regenerative gardening, and native foods. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass it over to her now, and she's going to tell you a bit about her channel and what you can expect to see and learn if you head over there to visit, and the link will be in the description. So fire away, Robin.
Cool. So I think the main idea for my channel and what I like to show is just really how you can connect to nature and bring nature into gardening, and also provide different videos to relax you as well, by different garden tours to inspire, but also just how to teach you how to do basic garden things as well, even just whether it's planting a tomato or growing microgreens. I think it's great to even have similar videos to what other people do, just to help inspire more people. And I think it's great to grow this community. So I'll be doing lots more garden tours and also travel vlogs of showing different natural areas, and then trying to take a little bit of that and bringing it back home as well, and implementing it in my permaculture style garden.
Yeah. Nice one. So just tell us a little bit about the travel vlogs. What's sort of in those? Like, what would people see and learn if they come to watch one of those?
Yeah, so I'm just about to edit one of them now, where we went up to the Bunya Mountains and we went camping. And I just think it's so important to be able to connect to nature and kind of have a break from the busy
Forest bathing?
Yeah, it's scientifically proven that it is actually beneficial, and being around different plants actually can, kind of it is beneficial for your brain and your body. So, I guess just, seeing different areas of Australia, I love sharing that, and inspiring people to get out in nature.
So keep an eye open for that one, guys, in the Bunya Mountains. I have been there. It is absolutely beautiful. They call it the Bunya Mountains because it has a native tree there called the bunya tree, and it grows an amazing nut. It tastes better than macadamia, in my opinion. It's absolutely huge, the pod, though, and if it fell on your head from about 30 metres up, you are dead. That's why you don't hear of them very much, and I think they only fruit up every second year. I had one growing on a place up in Byron Bay where I used to take care of Steve Snow's, this famous restaurateur, and he used to make a bunya nut sauce with mud crabs. And I'm telling you, man, he's like an award-winning chef, like 24 times over or something. But he used to send me down to get them, and now I figured out why, because it's dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They grow to about 30 centimeters in width and length, and they make a really good pesto as well. We had some pesto up there. It's delicious.
Beautiful. And the story is with the Aboriginals along that trail. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, that as they ate them, they actually planted the nuts along a trail, and it's called the Bunya Trail. And the Aborigines did that, and they would follow that trail up and down when they were migrating for the seasons, and harvest the trees and then pick the nuts. And it was a ceremonial thing, I believe. But yeah, it was called the Bunya Trail. Do you know any more about that?
I think that's pretty much it. It is a sacred tree in Aboriginal culture, and there are a lot of other trees from where I work up in Cape York as well, where similar things have happened. So you'll be walking on a riverbank and you'll find lots of lady apple syzygium trees. It's something that if you look into it a little bit more, you can find a lot around in your local area. Yeah, how trees were planted.
Yeah, wonderful. So they're sort of farming them in a way as they're moving up and down the coast, and then developing these stories around them. I think it's really, really cool. Anyway, look, thanks so much for coming and visiting and being a guest and just being your happy self. You have a beautiful smile there, and I'm sure everyone's been very stoked to meet you as well. And look, hopefully you will come on the show again and give us a bit of an update on what's going on in the near future. And if you want to go and visit Robin's channel, then as I said before, we've got the link down below. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you very much again. And I'm sure we will see you again in the near future, yes?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for having me on. I've been a fan of your channel, and I think it's great to be able to talk to people online and yeah, share different stories and have a conversation. It's really nice.
Wonderful. Thanks again. All right, guys, that was pretty cool, right? We're doing a few interviews here, and I think if you really like it, let us know in the comments box down below. Love to hear more from you. Reach out to Robin and go over there and say hello in the comments. Check her channel out. Check out Indigenous stuff and keep an eye out for that new video coming out. I'm really excited. I'm going to be definitely watching it. You have a great day and happy gardening, and we'll see you at the next video real soon. Bye for now.